like to welcome everybody back to another episode of Gamewreckers and Slobberknockers. We're here today with Coach Ryan Johnson, the defensive coordinator at Marquette High School in Alton, Illinois. He's the defensive coordinator there. Coach, welcome.
Thanks for having me on, Matt.
Hey, Coach, you've got a YouTube channel out there. It's got a lot of great drills and stuff on it. But for those of us who don't know you as well, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Tell us about where you've been and like levels you've coached at.
Yeah, so started off playing football at the age of 5, played all the way through high school. Had about 3 years there in between where I wasn't coaching and playing. And I'll tell you what, it might have been some of the most, I hate to use the word depressing, but it was probably some of the most depressing time in my life. And, decided to get into coaching youth football and did that for some years and loved it. And, some of the guys in the area said, you should really look into coaching high school football. And here in Illinois, you don't have to be a teacher to be a coach. I actually work in home health care for the Illinois Department of Public Health. So I went and took the test and became ASCP certified, American Sports Education Program, and got into high school coaching about 10 years ago. And I've currently been at Marquette for the last 7. DC, this will be year 5 of being the defensive coordinator there. So
nice. So it seems like you seem to have a long line of coaching, especially at the high school level, 10 years. But you spent some time in doing Pee Wee, and did you say middle school as well?
No, actually just youth football.
Just youth football?
Okay. And actually, most of the time when I coached youth football, I stayed with that same kind of age group. It was really a lot 8 to 10-year-olds.
Okay.
Which I think is a great time, right? Because, I've heard some people say, oh, well, I don't want to get my kid involved in football until junior high. And then you have some parents that get their kid involved right at 5 years old. You can start playing tackle football here in Illinois.
Okay.
And for some kids, 5 is way too early. Obviously, if you've got a aggressive, rambunctious kid, maybe football is the sport for him at 5. But if you have a shy, maybe more timid child at 5, I don't think football is the sport to get him into it, especially because we want him playing come high school time.
Right.
I think so many youth coaches burn kids out so early and put so much pressure on them to win. And it's like, you're trying to win a Lombardi trophy at the youth level. Let's focus on blocking and tackling.
Yeah, can we get the basics? Get the basics done first.
Absolutely. And you know what? And again, I think that's where colleagues in the area that coached at the high school level were like, we need more, youth guys that are like that. So I coached youth football for 9 years. 3 of the years when I first started coaching high school football, I was still doing youth football as well. So I'd go to my high school practice in the afternoon. We'd get done about 6 o'clock. I'd go over to the youth field. Assistant coaches would have things going, and then I'd get there about 6:30, and we'd practice till 8, and that was my day. As a football guy, I love it. And thankfully, I married a woman that loves football as well. So that's a tip right there.
Oh, absolutely. My wife came from a family that didn't have – it was her and her sister. Her dad didn't play football. But, we dated while I was getting into coaching, so she became the perfect football wife, at least for me in my eyes. She's the perfect football wife. The one question I have, though, is when those years that you were coaching high school and Pee Wee at the same time, what was the transition like from going from a high school level down to the Pee Wee level?
Well, see, that's one thing that I consider myself great at because, again, especially at youth level, right, you may have all kinds of football knowledge.
Right.
But you can't be down there talking to a kid about, 34 Bear Claw Stinger. You know what I mean? Like they're not getting that, right? Okay.
Right.
Or hey, we're gonna run a little cut cover 3 here or something. Like that's not happening.
Right.
So I think the greatest thing that I have, and it was part of my video talking about types of players that you get as well, being able to take a kid who's maybe never played the game and break it down to him in a way that he can understand, right? Because again, if a kid can understand it, and my youth guys now. So again, like I said, I've been doing this a long time. I have kids now that I coached at 8 or 9 that are now either college or getting married or things like this now.
Right. So you've got good relationships with them.
Yeah, and what's funny is they'll laugh because some of them will even stop by practice to see me and stuff. And here I am calling, I'm doing this and I'm calling Wolverine. And they're like, still using Wolverine blitz, coach, huh? Because my linebackers at the youth level were a Superman, a monster, and Wolverine. So
make it relatable. Just make it relatable.
Right. Superheroes, right? What 8 or 9-year-old kid doesn't know superheroes? So I'd be on the sideline for us at 8 or 9 and doing this, and they knew that this was, what do you think this was, coach?
Superman?
Superman, okay. Here I am at the high school level doing, you know what I mean?
Right.
Now, obviously, it's changed over a little bit over the years.
Right.
But I mean, man, football is an easy game complicated by coaches, okay?
Very true.
Like, it doesn't have to be that complicated to be successful. You can be simple and be successful.
Right. Well, Coach, we're ending up here in 2020. We're now, we're filming this in December of 2020. Here in Ohio, we got lucky enough. We played a season. Teams played anywhere from 6 to the state champions played 13 games, most of them. I know that Illinois was not lucky enough to be able to play football in the fall. How has COVID changed your season this year? How are you guys going to push moving forward?
Well, I think the biggest interesting thing is hopefully we play in the spring. Supposed to start up in February. And, the goal is, and the thing that concerns me is going from starting in February, running that season, much like college football talked about, right? If they run a spring season, then you're going right back into your, quote unquote grind of the summertime. Right. And there's really no, give in between there. And I've seen people on Twitter and Facebook and things say, well, kids go right from football into basketball all the time, or kids go.
Not the same. It's not the same. Even if you go football to wrestling, even, I was a football wrestler. My oldest son was a football wrestler. Like even football wrestling is not the same.
You still, and you know what, the great thing, my coaches they wouldn't even let us, we basically had to take 2 weeks from, if we were football players, when we went into wrestling season, our wrestling coaches made us take 2 weeks. Again, it was get your body, and again, again, you're going to have that time, but that's one concern that I have. The plus side to it is we now have freshmen that have been in the system now since June, because we still had some contact days in June, not knowing whether or not we were going to play.
Right.
So now you have freshmen, and a smaller school like ours, where freshmen have the opportunity to possibly get some starting reps at the varsity level, depending on, how advanced they are and skill level, things like that. But now they've had time to learn the system. They've had time to get in the weight room. Unfortunately, now the state has the weight room closed as well. So now we're trying to look at other ways to have these freshmen doing things on their own. But it's kind of like we're putting 2 off seasons into one. We got done with our season last year. We went into off-season training in January. We trained till June, got into July, and they said no football till spring. So basically, we've got to put 2 off seasons into 1 year.
Right.
I mean, we're basically getting a year to put 2 off seasons together. So, I mean, again, you're talking about a kid that's never. We had a kid go to a combine this past weekend that I was fortunate enough to help coach at, and he's a freshman. And the guys were like, "Hey, he looks really good for a freshman." I said, "Yeah," and he's never played. He hasn't even played a high school game yet.
Oh,
and he's out here, getting looks he hasn't even stepped on the field yet. So it's interesting.
Seeing what you guys have gone through, and us, we didn't know till I think we were a week into August before we knew we were going to play for sure. Maybe even 10 days in. And I can tell you this, I will never take for granted getting the privilege to coach the greatest sport in the world after seeing what we had to go through and seeing what coaches like you who didn't even get a fall season and you're hoping to have a spring season. I mean, you guys may lose an entire year of football based on, how the rules were made for you out of your control. You weren't given any say so in this.
And again, I'm not a teacher, so I get a stipend. My stipend runs football from basically June to the end of football season. So obviously without football season being there, this June through, November that you're normally getting a stipend. Yeah, I mean, everybody knows we're not doing it for the money, but at the same,
not at the high school level, you're not.
No, you're just not. And you know what? But again, that's the difference between high school and college and the pros is high school, again, is more about the relationships that you build and the, mentoring that you give to young people as opposed to being more of a business at the next level.
Exactly. I tell all my seniors that when they're leaving and they're going on to play college, I said, here, it was a game. I said, there, it's a job because somebody's paycheck for real decides, like they're making decisions because their paycheck counts on you. So
yeah, and every kid that's there with them, or whether they're ahead of them on the roster or behind them on the depth chart, they were all probably one of the better, one of the better kids at all their high schools. So
exactly.
It's more of that next man up mentality. That's for sure.
Exactly. Well, Coach, like I said earlier, you have a great YouTube channel with a lot of information on it, but you did a video last week called Designing a Defense and 12 things that you should make decisions on when you're trying to design a defense for where you're at. I want to talk specifically about 6 of them that I found really, really important. Number 1, talk about how you choose a defense based on the type of players year to year and your school size.
Yeah, so I think that, again, that was number 1 on the list because I think that's most important when you go into a job. Hopefully you've done some research if you're just getting hired into a program. Obviously, if you've been within a program, like I was within our program for 2 years before taking over as defensive coordinator. So I had the opportunity to kind of have an idea of what kind of players I was going to get year in and year out. Being a private Catholic school in Illinois, we don't have a feeder program, so we don't have a junior high. We do have youth programs in the area, like I said, but again, none of them are specifically like, these kids are for sure going to Marquette, and they know that, and they're running our system and doing our thing. So I think you have to look at, what kind of players and obviously the talent pool that you're getting because you want to be able to put kids in the best position to succeed, whatever defense that may be. I started out as a 4-3 guy, kind of morphed a little bit more into 4-2-5-ish. Now we're kind of roaming into that 3-3 territory. But one thing that hasn't really changed much is the techniques that we're playing. And, even our terminology, for the most part, has stayed the same. And our coverages have stayed the same behind that as well. So I think whatever you decide to do, I mean, again, for us, if we're at school size of just a little over 400, by school size, we have 8 classifications here in Illinois. Because we're a private school, they have what they call a success multiplier. We've been to the playoffs 15 of the last 20 years. So we're normally a 2A school that's playing a 3A or 4A schedule or playoffs.
So you're a level or 2 up from where you normally
Correct.
Play. Okay.
Correct.
Wow.
So, our program, if you have 400 kids in a school and you have 1,800 kids in a school, obviously
little different talent pool.
Exactly. So your player level that you're getting in your talent pool and that you're getting to draw from are totally different. I mean, it's like fishing in a lake and fishing in the ocean. Right. I mean, you can get some big fish in the lake, but you can get some real big fish in the ocean.
That is
true.
And,
that's what we kind of pride ourselves on. Michael Ford, graduate of 2014, currently playing with the Detroit Lions. So again, I think that, regardless of your school size that you come from, talent shines, right? I mean, it doesn't matter where you play at. Talent is going to shine. So I think you have to look at what you're getting. And like I said, for us, our program from freshman all the way through senior, the most I've seen in the 7 years that I've been there is 52 kids in the program. That was my very first year. We had 23 freshmen. But again, so you're talking from freshman to senior level, we've got about 52 kids. For instance, Civic Memorial, a public school, 4A here in the area, they normally have 60 kids on the sideline, 65 kids on the sideline. And that may, most of the time that may not include their freshmen. So that's what we're looking at. And, our goal is to have at least 10 to 12 freshmen every year, to keep that program going. And over the last 5 years that I've been the defense coordinator, I've had at least one freshman start for me on defense every year.
Okay. Great. Now that leads me to number 3. And once again, folks, in the comment section, I will put a link to Coach's video so you can see all 12. And I'm telling you right now, it's worth the watch because it makes you really think. Even as somebody who's a grizzly old veteran like myself, it helps you go back and rethink some of your thought processes as you're doing these things. So number 3.
It made me think when I was going through, when I was thinking about putting the video together, it made me think about some things.
Right. All right, Coach, your number 3 on that list was odd front or even front?
Yeah, so odd front or even front, for me, again, I think it goes back to what do you know? And as I've said, or what are you most comfortable with as well? But not only that, I think even more than that, it's what can you teach your kids, again, that they can understand? And, we always talk about how much does it cost? Right? Everything is how much does it cost? So when you're talking about odd or even, I think that with an even front, being an even front guy, I think there's a lot of simplicity in that. A lot of most of the time, you can even your one gap. This is your one gap. This is your job, and you go do it.
Right.
And I think that sometimes when people think about the 3 front, everybody's thinking about 6 guys up on the line of scrimmage and, a lot of slanting and movement. But again, you don't have to. And that's where, again, it comes back to what kind of players are you getting year to year that would help decide that. Personally, I think that as the game's moving more to that spread look, the more versatile that you can be and without changing what you do technique-wise. For instance, again, when we were 4-3, 4-2, we were still squeeze and scrape. That didn't change. It made it a little bit harder for us. But some of the way that we ran it, and Pete DeWeese was a big help to me because, again, I like the 4. I always like the 4-3, but I don't like the fact that most of the time you have to have a high school kid that can kind of 2-gap, strong A, weak B.
Right.
And again, am I going to get that player every year? I've had that player, but am I going to get that player consistently year to year that I want that to be my bread and butter? So he actually talked and we talked, and he was a great help to me. And that's what's great about reaching out to other coaches and getting ideas and thought process. I mean, that's if there's a bright spot to 2020, it's been, I think, the brotherhood within coaching of guys sharing knowledge with each other.
Absolutely.
Tenfold, man. Tenfold.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. 2020 at least got football coaches to start talking to each other more. And I'll be honest with you about this. If you were to make me, nail down, Coach Bartley, you got to pick one front. I'm an even front guy to my core. However, I also know how offenses are evolving, and I was actually had a great conversation with a friend of mine last night, and I told him, I said, well, if offenses would quit cheating so much and putting linemen downfield 5 yards and throwing the ball in front of the line of scrimmage. I said, defensive coaches wouldn't be so grumpy all the time. I said, but you guys are constantly making us have to be grumpy.
Man, it's tough. It's tough to play defense these days, people.
It is.
I'm telling you, man.
Rules are sloped to help the offense. I guarantee it.
Absolutely. But you know what? One thing, again, I think goes back to what level you coach at, because for us, you know, kids watch the NFL and they think that, oh, once that guy gets, you know, 4 yards downfield, I got to get off of him. This is high school, bro.
Right.
There's no flag. There's no flag for, again, you
no illegal contact in high school.
The ball comes out.
That's right. No illegal contact in high school.
You know, we have a rule for us within our coverage that my outside line, two doesn't cross your face.
Right.
I mean, he just doesn't. If he wants to cross the middle of the field, he's got to pay the toll. And by the end of the game, that price is going to be awful expensive.
Exactly. And Coach, what you just talked about brings me to the next point I wanted to talk about. Your number 4, the big debate, 1 high or 2 high.
So this one, I'm a big 2 high guy.
Right.
I'm a 2 high guy. But at the same time, I think that question really needs to be based off of your schedule and the opponents that you play. You know, posting up the video, I wanted all kinds of comments back, posted on Facebook as well, and received some comments. Actually, one of the comments is going to lead me into another video. They were asking specifically about practice plan on 1 platoon and 2 platoon. But it really got, you know, some of the comments were, well, the number one thing should be the teams that you're playing on your schedule year to year. And I agree with that. I think that goes back to your school size, right? You have an idea of what type of teams you're going to play year to year.
Exactly.
But when you talk about odd and even and you start getting into 1 high or 2 high, you need to focus on what you play on your schedule. Look, I love watching college film. I love watching pro ball. But man, I tell you what, I've spent a lot of this off season watching my opponents that we're going to be playing this year. Right. You know, deep diving some things, you know. Now, obviously, some of the kids are going to change. But if the coaching staff is remaining the same, most of the time, you know, Leopards don't change their spots.
That's right.
That's where I've tried to keep not evolving, but still keeping it fresh, because we do see relatively the same 9 opponents on our schedule every year. So there are different things that you have to pick up on. But, you know, if you're playing against a team that only throws the ball, you know, 5 times a game, I don't think you need to be too high. But if that's how you want to play it, and you got the dudes up front to do it, by all means, who am I to say otherwise, right? That's the great thing about the game. You can do it however you want. But like in my video, being a Buccaneers fan, watching Tyreek Hill just streak down the field on a 1 high safety. I mean, I'm just like, because I sit there and I think to myself, I'm like, I know Todd Bowles is an intelligent guy.
Right.
And I know as a defensive coordinator, sometimes we say, by God, we're going out there and we're doing this come hell or high water. And sometimes we're wrong.
Right. Exactly.
When we go in there with that attitude of, I don't care what's going on, this is what we're going to do because this is who we are, you know, you're in for a long night. And the Buccaneers were in for a long night until they decided to start. I mean, I think he had like 200 yards in the first half and only had 1 or 2 catches in the second half. Right. Because they said, look, we can't do this anymore. You know, and you have to be, as a coach, I think, willing to have that room to be able to say, okay, this isn't working. Right. You know, I say we have plan A, we have plan B, and if we go to plan C, we're screwed anyway.
Right. You know, a great friend of mine, and I worked for him for a few years. It's probably like 8 years. A guy named Bob DeLong here. Always equated, we keep doing the same thing. It's like you just want to put your tongue on that belt sander, don't you? You want to keep doing the same thing. Just put your tongue on that belt sander, and it'll help remind you why you don't want to do those things.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. Coach, number 6 on your list was spill or box.
Yeah, yeah. So out of curiosity, you're 3-4.
Yep.
I'm sorry, 4.
Well, I'm a
So
4-3 guy, but I've coached
right,
the past 4 years in a 3-4.
right. So being a 4 guy, especially, I think as a 4 guy, you're asking yourself this question more than whether you're a 3 guy,
Right.
right? But so for you, were you more of a box or a spill kind of guy yourself?
We wanted to spill everything,
Right.
except
Okay.
except our corners. They had to box it in. Like nothing gets outside of you. You can't spill anything because there's nobody out
Right.
there but a touchdown for the other team.
So for us, and this has been the great thing of us kind of morphing and transitioning, because I've had a kid over the last 2 years that was playing our rush end, our weak side end.
Right.
But if he's long, lanky, man, we have tried putting everything we can. He eats like a horse. He eats. He can't get any weight. He's lean and long, and so it was creating some issues. But at the same time, that's where myself as a coach, I have to come back in, because he was having a tougher time working that squeeze and wrong arm, because again, he didn't have sometimes the body to really take that on. And in his mind, he was like, well, I think I can beat him up the field, right? I can use my speed and beat him up the field. And I kept having to tell him, that's what they want you to do. They want you to go upfield, right? And if you go upfield, and this is where I talk to my linebackers all the time, you have to make that front line right.
Exactly.
Okay, so if he does it wrong, right, you got to correct him. You got to set that right. I call it lanes of the highway, right?
Yep.
If you're both in the same lane, it's going to be a wreck, and it's going to be a hell of a mess.
Right.
Okay, so but for us, that's where, again, what kind of players do you have? What are you facing? What are you seeing? If you're seeing a lot of power, a lot of GT, again, you better be squeezing, my personal opinion.
Right.
I mean, I just, it's so tough to get a kid, especially at the high school level, not to want to make a play. I tell my kids all the time, I don't want Superman out there. Give me Clark Kent. Give me the guy that does his job. So for us, squeeze it, spill it, kill it, that's how we roll. Right. They know that me being the defensive line coach, I'm on it even more. I mean, like I told them, they started joking, Coach, do you have that tattooed on yourself somewhere? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have it somewhere. And I tell them that again, if we squeeze it and spill it, guys, you're making the play without making the play.
Right.
Right. I mean, when I look at it and go through, that's what we on our team call a lockdown play. Right. A lockdown play is by you doing your job. You may not have made the play, but you made the play that made the play. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it's tough. To me, it's tougher to get a young player to stop running off the table or off the cliff, up the field too far, as opposed to building that house. I mean, even with a boxing team, obviously at the youth level, we run a lot more box, right? Everything is toss, sweep left, toss, sweep right. So, we box everything. But that's a lot easier because you're not getting a lot of those pulling linemen and all this other stuff that you get at the high school level.
Right.
And it's easier for me to tell a kid, if you see, you know what I mean? If you see a down block here, we squeeze it and we go off of that.
Right.
As opposed to telling them, hey, come up field, set your house, build your house, and, don't let anything get out of you. Now it really seems like you're really trying to tell a kid, hey, I don't want you to make a play, just stay here. And then I feel like they play slower almost. That's just at the high school level. I feel like boxing teams, tend to play. I don't know. It just feels slower. I feel like I can take, from an offensive standpoint, I feel like an offense can take a player. They can just start taking guys away. And I know that that's what they're doing with all the zone read and everything. They're trying to make your defensive end wrong no matter what he does.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that comes back into the type of technique that you play. I've seen some guys say, well, we box and we squeeze. They'll come up the field and do what they call like a sink and a surf type deal where, it's 2 yards upfield, build the house, and then we kind of, surf down the line type deal. That may work for some. Again, I'm not getting athletes year in and year out like that.
Right. And I think that depends on who you get. So this, you have your squeeze it, spill it to kill it. Ours had the past 4 years has been scratch where it itches, especially for the linebacker and the safety. Scratch where the guy in front of you itches, so kind of same thing. Correct them if they're wrong.
Right.
All right, Coach. Number 9, stunt or static? Stunt or static?
Here we go. Probably my favorite topic, because I've changed over the years. In the beginning, it was, bring the house, Buddy Ryan, Rex Ryan style. Just absolutely come after it. And then as the years go by, again, you start to realize that you can still be aggressive without being stupid. Okay. I think that's where, when we talk about aggression, I have a saying, if you can get there with 4, why bring more?
Right.
I mean, if you're getting there with 4, there's really no need to blitz. And I think that, looking at the pro level, I think everybody's trying to figure out with the Chiefs, how can we stop them with 4? You know what I mean? Like, right. How can we? Because and now I think they're starting to say, well, how can we stop them with 3 and have one guy spy Mahomes and still be able to? I mean, that's where your matchups become so important and become nightmares. If you can get pressure on them without being too aggressive, I think when I did the video, as I said in the video, if you can live somewhere in the middle of these, then you're doing pretty good.
Right.
Exactly. I think there's let the game, and this is where I've changed over the years. Before, I dictated calling a blitz, almost like these crazy offensive coordinators that I joke around with, and say, man, you guys want to use every play in the playbook when you could probably use 3.
Offensive coordinators always want to show you how much they know.
And that's where I've come to the realization that why call a blitz just because I'm sitting over there bored and we're dominating in a game just to call up when I was younger, right? It was almost that ego in me was like, I'm dominating them, we're punishing them, but we want to.
Now you want to go off the top rope, people's elbow on them.
Yeah, Superfly Jimmy Snook off the top rope. I mean, and I don't think there's a need to do that, because then you have breakdowns, right? That's when you end up having breakdowns, and you look at it and. Lord, look at that Jets game. I mean, I thought to myself when that thing happened, one or two things. Either he's tanking on purpose, or, again, he's about to get fired. I guess I found out he wasn't tanking on purpose because they fired the man.
Fired again.
I hope they didn't tell him to tank and then turned around and fired him. But it's, that's a rough one. That's rough. I mean, why?
Right.
Why?
Well, I can tell you this. This is what I learned as a young defensive coordinator. We had a group of kids that I was trying to stunt, trying to get movement out of them. But when did we play best? When I just let them play. When we were static. When I really don't think I called after week 2 or 3 that year. I don't think I called more than maybe a handful of stunts after that. And we played base. I mean, just because, one, they knew what they were doing. And they felt more comfortable. Just let me read my keys and let me go run. Quit trying to put me somewhere where I don't want to go naturally. So that's so true. It's learning to find the balance and letting the kids dictate to you.
Well, and I think with younger players, so for instance, I had a sophomore linebacker. He's a senior now. And when he was a sophomore, he had to step in. I graduated 9 out of the 11 on my defense. So went 8-1, 6 points a game for the season, 7th or 8th in the state as far as points allowed. And I graduated 9 of the 11, and the other 2 transferred out for whatever reason as seniors. So literally I was putting 11 guys on the field. At the time, the senior class coming up only had 6 seniors. So here I had a sophomore stepping in to play middle linebacker for me. And I'm teaching him to read his keys, and I'm saying, okay, here's when he does this, you do this, read the triangle, yada, yada, right? We're going through. And man, he was playing slow. He was just playing slow. And then he came to me and he said, Coach, do you think maybe you can blitz me a little bit more? And at first I'm like, blitz you? You're not like, you want to go to the next level, right? Because I tell him, you have to earn the right to pass rush, right? You gotta win first and second down to earn the right to rush the passer. You know, make sure that they're in a passing situation, and I'll give you, what you want. But, that was great because he came to me and said, hey, Coach, I'm feeling uncomfortable. And at first, right, I'm like, and then I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. And so I just started kind of rolling the dice with, and all of a sudden the kid's just running all over the field, making play after play after play. And it was like that tentative went out of him.
Right.
So it's like, all right, now I have to decide, is this the best position for him moving forward, which we have. He's my captain. He's going to be a senior this year. Great kid. I mean, and now he can do both. And he really can read, and he's like, Coach, the game has slowed down so much. That's one thing he told me this summer. When we're going through practice, he's just so laid back and cool and calm and easy. And I'm like, yeah, because this is your 3rd year in the system. Like now, like all the jitters are gone. There's really nothing that he hasn't seen at this point now after 3 years. And playing as a sophomore, getting varsity, that's the thing about this group that I feel so terrible about. This group went out there, sophomores and juniors, and went 5-4 back-to-back years. Made the playoffs one year at 5-4 last year because we had strength of schedule points. The year before we were 5-4, we didn't have enough strength of schedule points to make the playoffs. But this group, like I said, they're excited because they've really put in the work to understand, and now this is supposed to be their time. And you feel terrible for them.
Exactly. All right, Coach. Number 10, man or zone.
So, man or zone, for us, we like to go probably more zone. I'm probably more zone than man. But at the same time, the best of both worlds, in my opinion, we run to read, palms, again, blue. Yep. Everybody has their own terminology, whatever they want to call it. For us, we call it to read because I feel like that's where we're getting the best of both worlds. So we do have some things where we'll run split field coverages as well. So we may be running zone on one side and man on the other.
Right.
Again, depending on the players that we're getting year to year and the players that you have, and going all the way back to 1 platoon or 2 platoon in the video. And, hopefully you guys, anybody watching this goes and checks that out as well, because some of this other stuff may make a little bit more sense. But, again, going back to what's the cost? How much does it cost? How much of your practice time does it take? And don't get me wrong, to read for freshmen coming in, I mean, it seems difficult.
Pretty expensive to a freshman.
And it is. But that comes back to me putting him maybe in the best position to succeed. Mm-hmm. So maybe as a freshman, if this kid's a freshman and he's talented enough to play and he can go out there and help me maybe play cornerback or safety, well, now I'm going to be looking at maybe putting him on the boundary side or our weak side, and maybe he's playing more man-to-man coverage, because he's an athlete as we progress and teach him. But I think it also comes down to the teaching as well. And this is where I encourage everybody, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, look and find, and again, find a way to break it down to your kids the way they understand. And I will give 100% credit, Coach Mac on YouTube, when it comes to split field coverages, the way he breaks it down, so simply, again, talking about using certain buzzwords for guys. And, you know, because I went to all the clinic and I'm loving all this stuff. And like we just said, it's really expensive. It's an expensive piece to put in the arsenal. But when I started getting some, you know, looking at these buzzwords and saying, for instance, for your outside linebacker, when we run 2 read, 2 doesn't cross my face, 3 doesn't out leverage me. That's my job in coverage as that, you know, down safety, that, you know, that fifth safety in there. I mean, it's literally as simple as that. 2 doesn't cross my face, 3 doesn't out leverage me. And when we're working with him and we see him not do his job for one reason or another, we again talk about those buzzwords, you know, for cornerbacks. Okay. Did he go out, or I'm sorry, did he go in, or did he go in underneath linebacker level?
Right.
Okay. Or out underneath linebacker level. If he went out underneath linebacker level, I jumped the route. If not, I'm basically manned up on this guy. And that's where some teams go back and they do a 2 read and play it more 2 read, but then they'll play it quarter style, where if one goes under right away, that corner will just drop on back as quarters. Again, if he goes under right away, we're going to go ahead and let him go under. Right. But we're going to kind of seek with our free safety and come across on some of those things too. But the time that you have to put into something, whatever you're going to do, I guess what my main point is, whatever you're going to do, put the time into it, right? 80% of all of our results come from 20% of our focus, right? So spend that focus time on that. So when our guys go over there and work coverage, it's basically a split line deal where we're doing half the field and we're running our coverage beaters.
Right.
I mean, and that's all we do. So they just rep it and rep it and rep it. And when I go to 7 on 7s, again, we'll run it. And obviously, most of the time you go to 7 on 7, right? Everybody's running 2-man. Everybody's manned up underneath. 2 free safeties to run all over. I don't care about that, right? Because I'm there to work what we're doing and get film on that. We get beat on it, that's fine. It's a learning experience to have on film to go back and say, here's what you did, but once they get it, man, I tell you what, it really helps open up what you can do with some things. I would definitely say you need to focus on one and have the other as a curveball, change of pace. That's the great thing about split field, is we are able to help dictate. If I got a kid as a freshman that he's just not getting the 2 read, well, you know what, if I play him at corner and we play him on the weak side, if we have some of our roll cover 3 stuff, he knows how to play cover 3, because a lot of youth teams are playing cover 3 if they're playing any kind of coverage, you know, at the youth level. Most of the time it is cover 3. So they come in with some of that knowledge. But again, you make sure you've got a guy that can teach it and do it and go through it and knows what you're looking to do.
Awesome. Awesome.
And for us, morphing from 4-3, 4-2-5, kind of 3-3 still too high, that 3-3 too high, we were able to keep all our coverages. So even though our fronts and some of the stuff was changing up front, our techniques were basically the same. The coverages we were playing behind it are virtually the same. Again, a little curveball here or there, something new. not necessarily new, but something that running certain things you need to have, in that toolbox. So, but for us, we're to read, man, some sky cloud type stuff, a little roll or cut cover 3. Again, some people may call it robber. For us, again, that's another terminology, guys. Again, we're football guys. We know the terminology. FBI, man, teach these kids football intelligence. You can teach them terminology, but at the end of the day, you don't have to use all the terminology. You can use, again, you don't have to use robber and all this. You can break it down. Don't get me wrong. I know the counter to that is saying, well, you're not getting guys ready for the next level for all the different verbiage and lingo and everything that you're going to have to hear. And I would say to that, at the same time, they have from 7 a.m. with those guys till 10 o'clock at night at the next level as well.
Yep. I
mean, if a kid's a good student, right, and studies the game, he's going to be ready. It's not that I don't use, when we're going through, I talk about, this is a 3 tech, this is a 5 tech, this is here. But you know what? Ultimately, when I talk to a kid and I'm talking about him being a 5 tech, I could also just say, how about you take your inside eye and match it up with his outside eye here at tackle? Is that still a 5 tech?
Still 5 tech, Coach.
Does the kid probably understand that more than you telling him, I need you in a 5 tech?
Yep.
Probably does, So the any way you can get kids to understand and play faster, you're going to be a lot better on defense. Again, that's why we coach defense, right? I joke with the guys, man. It's 3's: effort, energy, and intensity. And they're like, Coach, intensity's with an I. I said, that's right. That's why I coach defense.
Exactly. All right, Coach, we're at the end of the show here. We're going to put a little pressure on you, bring in the house.
All right.
Best college rivalry game.
Oh, man. Growing up, for me, it was always Miami, Florida State. It doesn't have the luster and shine that it once did.
Right.
But for me, growing up, I was a huge Hurricanes fan. So it either had to be FSU and Miami, or the Catholics versus the convicts. That rivalry, man, for me growing up,
big.
That was some of the most insane stuff I've ever seen on a football field. Like watching those games as a kid, I'm like, this is what football is. And it's like, yeah, it's not really like this at all, kind of,
Right.
But yeah, I really like those. New age, that's a tough one, new age, because again, I think we all feel like it's kind of Alabama, Clemson, and then everybody else these days.
Pretty much.
The
way it feels like a lot of times.
I don't know. These days, I don't know. I just don't feel the rivalries as much these days. I mean, what do you think compared to, maybe I'm just being nostalgic?
Well, and for me, being an Ohio guy, Ohio State, Michigan, but I'm not getting it this year. But the one I make sure I always watch, Army, Navy.
Absolutely.
Army, Navy every year. Just because.
Absolutely.
Just because. All right, Coach. Bigger football legend, Bear Bryant or Nick Saban?
Bear Bryant.
There you go. Better football movie, Rudy or We Are Marshall?
Rudy.
Really?
Rudy.
Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. I was hoping for Marshall.
Well, I got my grandfather went to Notre Dame, and then he also went to midshipman school. So, the Navy Notre Dame game is always a big one in our family. Oh my goodness, my grandma, yeah, she'd probably be all over me if I didn't talk about it. If I was asked rivalry and didn't say Navy Notre Dame, it's like, yeah, that's really big in our family. Maybe not,
right.
All families.
No, it's still a big game.
Yeah, but so yeah, definitely got to have a little love for Rudy.
Okay. All right, now here's the two non-football questions.
All right.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Yeah, I consider a hot dog a sandwich.
All right. Okay.
My son would not. My son would not. He doesn't like it on a bun. He wants it cut up to where he can fork it and dip it in the ketchup.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. All right. Now I know where you're from. I know where Alton's from. You're a little closer to St. Louis, so had to ask this question: St. Louis or Kansas City style ribs? Which one's better?
Oh, Kansas City style.
Yes. Yes.
But let's caveat that, and I will say nothing better than Memphis. Nothing better than some.
Yeah, there you go. Memphis style ribs, pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, KC's there, but something about that Memphis sweet and spice. I mean, but yeah, I got to go Kansas City. Look, I'm close to St. Louis, but I'm a Cubs fan as well. So I tell you what, I get a lot of grief over the Cardinals, man. A lot of grief over those Cardinals.
I understand.
So,
Coach, this has been a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on again. I enjoyed the the last episode that you had put out too.
Yep.
And good luck with the channel, getting some things going. And it sound like you decided to do this the same reason I started to put up some YouTube content is love talking football. Just want to give back to a game that's given us so much.
It's a blast. I was telling some of the other guys today that I said, I never thought that I would have as much fun doing these things, just because it's fun to hear guys from different parts. And some of these guys I know, some of them I don't. And it's just great to hear, people's stories and how they come up with thought processes. And I'm telling you, listeners, you need to go check out Coach Johnson's YouTube channel. I will put that link and the link exactly to the 12 decisions on designing a defense in the comments section. So, hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Hope to catch you here next time for another episode of Gamewreckers and Slobberknockers.